hand it off to our first presenting artist, Razi Jafri, to introduce themselves and to get us going. How about it, Razi?
Hello, everyone. My name is Razi Jafri. I am a Detroit, well, technically I live in Hamtramck, but I'm a Hamtramck-based documentary filmmaker and producer and cultural activist. Part of my work also includes curation and cultural activism and organizing. Yeah, I'll just start off with that.
All right. And you have a video presentation for us to check out. So introduce that video presentation and tease it for us.
Sure. The video that you're about to see is a trailer for a film that essentially launched my career as a documentary filmmaker. It's a film called Hamtramck, USA. The documentary explores life and democracy in America's first Muslim majority city. I wanted to work on a project like this with my co-director, Justin Feltman, who I worked on the project with, partly to address some of the misinformation and misrepresentation about the Muslim American community, about the various immigrant communities as well that were being marginalized and misrepresented during that period in American culture and pop culture and news media and journalism. Even Hamtramck itself is often misrepresented and portrayed in the media. And so we wanted to create a film that allows Hamtramck to tell its own story. There's actually very few, there's no interviews in the film. We made a purely verite style documentary. And so the film can be seen on Amazon and Apple platforms, but I'll just go ahead and let you guys watch the trailer and then we'll go from there.
I've realized that I used to collect the list of graduates every year because I was really interested in the last names of the graduates, and watched that list of names shift to Bosnians in the early 90s, and then more and more Bangladeshi names and Yemeni names. And I've realized that I am probably the last in the 100-year line of Polish mayors.
Hamtramck, Michigan, has become the first Muslim-majority city in America.
Inshallah, you support me November 7th as well. Inshallah, we unify together as one, and inshallah, we accomplish the unaccomplished prior.
If you like to change, I have some idea to restructure and modify the administration.
If you care about this community and community's honor, come out and vote.
Feeling confident, feeling happy. This is our time to shine.
আমি এই চিঠিটা আমার বাড়িতে কাউন্সিল করতে হাসান এর নিকট থেকে পেয়েছি। তিনি লিখেছেন যে তিনি বাংলাদেশি, ইয়ামেনি, পোলিশ, আফ্রিকান আমেরিকান এবং আমেরিকানদের সাথে কাজ করেছেন। কিন্তু নির্বাচনের দিন আমরা পোলিশ আমেরিকান, আফ্রিকান আমেরিকান, ইয়ামেনি অথবা বাংলাদেশি এর কোনো চাই না। আমরা সবাই হলাম Hamtramck.
People didn't even think about who is being president of the United States, and tonight they want to know who will be the mayor of Hamtramck. 2 square miles.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Now, that is a teaser of your documentary film, Hamtramck, USA, and I understand it made its world premiere at South by Southwest a couple of years ago. Give us what that experience was like for you.
It's have a bit of a complicated answer because it was actually scheduled for a premiere at the 2020 South by Southwest Film Festival, which of course was canceled and because of the COVID pandemic. And I think it was probably the first major international event to be canceled. Our film was scheduled to premiere March 13th. I remember the exact dates. The premiere was on March 13th, and then we were having additional screenings in the subsequent days. I think our second screening was the 15th, and we had one on the 16th. And we actually were going to be flying several of the subjects of the film down to the festival so they can be part of that experience. We rented, there's a Detroit themed restaurant in Austin that we booked for a party. Thankfully, they were very generous. They refunded our deposit and everything. In that moment, the world really changed. So while I get to keep the laurels and the achievement of having been a South by Southwest alumni, we didn't actually get to experience it.
Now, your films, that one, Ashura in Detroit, Loyalty, there's a lot of interconnectivity between various socioeconomic and cultural aesthetics and issues. How important is that to weave all of those elements into your documentary films?
Yeah, it's really important for me. I mean, I came to filmmaking later in life, at around the age of 33, 34. I decided to leave my career as an engineer, which is what I studied in college, and worked in the industry for about 10 years, first in the automotive industry, then in biotech. One of the things that really has always frustrated me is how the various communities that I'm a part of, whether it's immigrant, or the Muslim community, has been misrepresented for my entire life. And primarily that's been done through the media. And through all of this experience, it was always painfully frustrating to see these representations and hardly ever getting to see a positive or neutral representation. And so that was part of my motivation to represent these communities that I'm a part of, that I know very well, that have had a positive impact on my life. And, just wanting to do a little bit to help change the narrative and help rewrite the narrative a little bit. So those topics are really important to me. And I hope to always work around issues that will fight racism, promote civil rights, throughout my work and throughout my career. I hope to continue to maintain that.
Let's talk about your visual style and presentation, because you aren't just a documentarian or a director who just has talking heads. You have a lot of moving imagery that sort of paces the story along. Talk about how important it is in the way that you present your images visually and how they move along your narrative.
Yeah, I think every film and every documentary especially is very different. And one of the reasons we wanted to film and edit Hamtramck USA the way that it is, without any interviews in the film, was that we actually wanted to let the residents and the community of Hamtramck speak for itself. Not only the members of the community, but the cityscape and the design and the vernaculars of the community speak for itself. And that is manifested through the many colorful celebrations, the many unique communities that live in Hamtramck, the food scene, the political scene. We wanted all of that to speak for itself. That is a methodology that isn't always appropriate for a documentary. Sometimes you need those talking head interviews for context and background, but for that particular film, we decided not to. Other films that I'm working on, I have to evolve my style to match the needs of the project a bit. I'm working on many different, projects right now, some that I'm directing, some that I'm directing and producing, some that I'm just producing. So I think a lot of it depends on my role. A lot of it depends on what's required. of the film to tell the best story. And so it's an evolving style, but I'm certainly, influenced by a lot of incredible documentary filmmakers that are out there working right now and from the past. And so I'm seeking inspiration from different things. I'm also seeking inspiration from narrative filmmaking. So, the different cinematic approaches, overlap sometimes. You see narrative filmmakers employing, like Jonathan Demme or Chloe Zhao, employing documentary styles, and you have documentary filmmakers that are employing the cinematic language of narrative films as well. And so this is something, as I begin to develop and grow my own cinematic language and creative language, it's going to continue to evolve and grow. But a lot of it does depend on the project itself.
Absolutely. Now, I find it so interesting that you mentioned that you got into filmmaking a little bit later in the game. You have an engineering background, and then you eventually transitioned into filmmaking. So how does that impact what you do, especially in terms of your goals? What are some of your long-term goals, considering the fact that you got into filmmaking a little bit later?
Yeah, so I feel like I have lost time to make up for. I come from an immigrant background. I was born in India, moved to Detroit, very young with my family. Grew up in the city, and we didn't have a lot of examples, in our community for people that chose a creative path. And I always felt like growing up, I was always drawing, sketching, doing photography, and just always was a very creative person. And but due to immigrant ideals and expectations and familial responsibility, I chose a more pragmatic path. I chose engineering because I thought I would make good money and have job stability, and all of those things were true. But at the same time, it wasn't who I was. I didn't really fit into corporate America. As an undergraduate student, I was involved in a lot of social activism, especially organizing around Palestinian liberation, fighting against Islamophobia, fighting against and protesting things like the Iraq War, which, we're on at its 20th anniversary just in these weeks right now. And we're seeing a lot of retrospective and critical coverage of the initiation of that conflict. So a lot of those things during my time as a young activist, as a young student activist, those things stayed with me, So now imagine I'm entering a career as an engineer in corporate America, and there feels like there's a major misalignment between my values and who I am as a person and what I believe about myself and the type of work that I was doing. Not that, it's not like the companies I worked in were involved in war profiteering or anything like that. I mean, there were honest businesses, I just didn't feel like I fit in, and so, fast forward a couple years later, I was going through a major transition in life, and I decided it was time to hit the reset button and start over. And, I started as a documentary photographer and photojournalist, and that led to a fellowship with an amazing organization called Documenting Detroit, one of my favorite artist fellowships and organizations in Detroit. That helped teach me how to craft an idea from a nascent moment in your mind and turn it into an actual story. And so that's essentially where I learned storytelling. And from there, the year that Trump got elected in 2016, I remember being at the Arab American National Museum with my friend Justin Feltman, who I ended up directing Hamtramck USA with, watching the results coming in, and it felt like, oh, we have to do something about this. We have to rewrite the narrative. And so I think, in that moment, I couldn't have known that the film project, which Justin and I started on a whim, would end up premiering at South by Southwest, and it would actually launch my career. And among the things that I carried, from my engineering time to this point were the organizational, the problem solving, the project planning. Every film is a major project. Every film is a business also. So I think I carried a lot of those things, learning how to budget, learning how to manage projects, learning how to manage people, how to build a team, I left a management role in my last role as an engineer. And so I carried all those things with me. And I think they really helped me develop certain skills around organization and management and budgeting and things like that. So it certainly helped a lot now, or it helped a lot in my career. And now looking ahead in my career, a lot of things have happened that were certainly unexpected. But once you build on, one success, you are able to build on additional things. So although we weren't able to have a physical premiere for our film at South by Southwest, it was a major accomplishment. And I fully appreciate and recognize what an honor it was to be accepted for the festival. But I've been able to build on that, and I've been awarded fellowships, obviously with Kresge, but also with the Sundance Institute. And that's led to additional opportunities for the other projects that I'm working on. And so if I can say with some degree of, humility, is that I am an ambitious filmmaker. I want to see my work out in the world. I want to see change coming out of some of the stories that I'm creating through the impact work that comes out of the films that I'm working on. I'm hoping to see positive changes. I'm hoping to see a reduction in racism and prejudice, and an increase in civil and human rights for the people that I'm working on, but then also the communities that they're a part of. The topics that I'm interested in, as I mentioned, fighting Islamophobia and racism, but also telling other stories about marginalized groups and underrepresented minority communities, some of the communities that I'm a part of. But one of the things that I've been focusing on more recently is human rights issues, particularly around refugees. One of the films that I'm working on is about a Yemeni refugee who's stuck in South Korea on a temporary visa, while his wife and kids, who've recently been migrated to Jakarta or resettled to Jakarta, Indonesia, and his parents live in Dearborn, Michigan. So it's this global, local story. And I was just in Jakarta and Seoul a few weeks ago. I just came back as filming for that project. And I'll be going back later this summer, as the family in Dearborn will travel to Jakarta to visit their kids and grandkids whom they haven't seen in many years. But I'm also interested in some lighthearted things too, and I hope to work on a vast array of topics in my career. I think another thing as BIPOC filmmakers, and I think Jhayla might agree with me, is that we get pigeonholed as either Black filmmakers or Asian American filmmakers or immigrant filmmakers, that we only are allowed to work on those films, but we are storytellers, and we're interested in telling stories that are unique and entertaining. And so I look at the example of somebody like Chloe Zhao, an immigrant to the United States, Academy Award-winning film director, whose work transcends her own identity as an Asian American filmmaker and storyteller. So I'm very inspired by that. So a bit of a long-winded explanation to where I'm headed, but hope that gives some insights.
That's okay. That's okay. Now, why don't we focus in on the Kresge component of it? You are a Kresge Artist Fellow. What's the impact been with that type of recognition? And then what are your goals for the remainder of the fellowship year?
Yeah, being recognized by Kresge is quite an accomplishment and achievement for me. It's something that, a number of my idols and heroes in Detroit, whether they're filmmakers or artists of other disciplines, it's a recognition and award that many of them have received. So it's something as an artist, I was very determined in pursuing the Kresge Fellowship. I decided to use the fellowship. I was a Gilda Award winner, and so I was able to use the funds to actually help start a production company with two other filmmakers, one animator, one narrative filmmaker. And so we're hoping to launch the production company within a year. It's taken some growing pains to get it going, but the funds from the Gilda Award have allowed us to develop some of the infrastructure, the basic infrastructure of a business, to help make it sustainable, because I think that's one of the challenges that artists face often is that, we are incredibly talented and have a lot of skills within our own creative practice, but in order for us to be sustainable, we have to develop a business plan and a business model that allows us to be sustainable. And so that was the idea behind forming this production company using the Kresge Fellowship, the Gilda Fellowship funds to launch that. I hope to be awarded the full fellowship, the Kresge Artist Fellowship one day. That'll help me, continue to grow this business and grow my career, and have that achievement, in my background, which I can, proudly share with others, as I do now with the Gilda Award. The remaining time in the fellowship, I hope to dedicate to continue to build and grow this company, and work with other Kresge artists. And actually, I have been collaborating with Jeremy Brockman, who's been a cinematographer on one of the films that I'm working on. And I think he's worked with Jhayla before and many other directors and producers in Detroit. So Jeremy and I met through the Kresge Fellowship. And so now we're working together on that. And I hope to work together with Jeremy and people like Jhayla and others on many projects in the future. So it's just a really wonderful community and cohort. And I think one of the things that Kresge does really well is bring us all together in the same room. And so people like Jeremy and myself can meet and potentially work on things together. So, I hope to continue to benefit from the Kresge community. And I also hope to give back when there's a chance to give back. One of the big parts of my creative practice is mentorship and teaching. I just got an MFA recently from the University of Michigan. And part of the reason why I wanted to get the MFA was I can teach and continue to mentor. It's something that I've done through other fellowships. And anytime I'm awarded an opportunity through an organization like Sundance or Kresge, I always want to give back. And in my producing work, I've actually taken on two projects with first-time filmmakers, one based in Detroit, one based in Chicago, both BIPOC filmmakers, one Arab American filmmaker, one Korean American filmmaker, to mentor and help them produce their films, because through the Sundance Network, I've gotten a tremendous amount of opportunities. And so one of the promises that I made to Sundance was, if awarded this producing fellowship, that I would help produce and focus on BIPOC filmmakers and young filmmakers who are just entering and starting their careers, because of the opportunities I've gotten from Sundance. And so I feel good that I've been able to live up to that. And that's also something that I want to give back to the Kresge artist community too. If there's an opportunity for me to mentor and help support artists in Detroit, then I'm very happy to do that. So I hope that in the next phase of my connection and relationship to Kresge, that mentorship is also a part of that.
Beautiful sentiments. We've got time for just one more question. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes. Since you got your start a little bit late in the game, what advice and words of encouragement would you have for those who are much in the same boat? Maybe they've wanted to get into filmmaking, making documentaries and so forth and so on, but for whatever reason, they haven't been able to do so, and they think it may be too late. What words of encouragement do you have for them to follow their passion like you did?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of a cliche, but, it's never too late, to start something new. I think people start learning, new skills and new languages and new abilities at every age of their life. It's not common, but it happens. I think the key to think about these things is one step at a time, and so you're not going to necessarily have a huge success with your first, book or poem or artwork that you're creating. It's going to take some time, but I think particularly with filmmaking, one of the things that I'll say is that it at the same time has become much more competitive to be a filmmaker today. At the same time, the barrier to entry has also become lower, as well. And so the advice that I would give is just to start. We have one of the best tools we can. In my hand here, there's these amazing apps and tools. There's this app called Filmic Pro, that basically turns your cell phone into a full cinema camera. And so I think that there's a lot of ideas in our heads that we want to create. They don't always have to be done using the highest end equipment and materials right away. They can be done in a shorter way. There's a lot of films at Sundance, both documentaries and feature films, that started as short films. And then eventually they were turned into longer films, and they were turned into feature films or feature-length documentaries later on based off of a short film idea. So bite off a piece that you can chew, use the tools at your disposal, and don't worry about how being perfect. Just start the project, just start the story, start the installation, the exhibition, just start it. The world has a funny way of supporting you and doors opening and opening doors for you. If you make an intention and you step out into the world with something meaningful and you work hard, the universe has a funny way of bringing people together and opening doors for you. So, I just say get started on your path. And if anybody is interested, I'm very available. I'm based here in Hamtramck, and so if people want to reach out to me, I'm pretty easy to find on social media and through the Kresge network. People can track me down as well. I love meeting with young filmmakers. I often do take these meetings, and it's amazing to hear about people that want to pursue their dreams. And I love it if I could be a part of that journey and help people in even a small way. So people can also reach out to me.
All right, wonderful. And your contact information is in the chat, but to stay connected with you, perhaps if you could just briefly say what that is.
My email address is just my email address is just razijafri@gmail.com. And kids these days, they can find me on Instagram as well. So you can send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. That's another way to track me down. So
wonderful. Gilda awardee Razi Jafri, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, good sir, and your presentation. And we look forward to seeing a lot of the things that you're going to be having up for us in the future.
Chris, it was lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. Wow, what a great story, what a great narrative. And we're not done. We have another filmmaker, an emerging filmmaker that we will be spotlighting this evening, and her name is Jhayla Mosley. Jhayla, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jhayla Mosley. I am a narrative filmmaker. I also work in the commercial space. I've done a little bit of doc stuff. The first project I ever did, which is what my video is based on, is a feature film titled The Letter. And it talks about mental health is based, a little bit on my life, a little bit on the lives of people that I know about. And all in all, I just like to showcase the Black experience without exploiting us, over-sexualizing us, and just being real and realistic. So
yeah. And Jhayla, if you can just briefly give us your background, because you're in Detroit, but you're originally from Nebraska. Kind of tell us how you ended up in Detroit.
So I'm not from Nebraska. I was born there.
Okay.
So my dad's from South Central LA and my mom's from Detroit. They went to college in Wayne State, Nebraska, which is so random. And then my mom had me in college, and then I just moved around a lot as a kid, kind of settled back in Michigan. But I started off as an actress. I was doing theater. I did a little bit in New York. And then I did the whole college thing. Like, I went to college at University of Detroit Mercy, and I graduated, and I was working as a driver at Amazon. And then I'm like, you know what? I really want to make a film. So I took all of the money that I was making at Amazon, and I picked up like double shifts. I'm talking working like 6 days a week at Amazon so I can do my film for an entire year. And then October 2020, is when I actually shot my film. So
Now, your films are really heavy on narrative, but they have like this throwback nostalgic element as well. Kind of explain that aesthetic to your filmmaking.
So the filmmaking is really based on color. It's the color scheme kind of based on like what Leah's going through. It's the characters, it's kind of split into two stories. So it's one story is about the girl, which is Leah McGraw, and you know, her perspective growing up as an orphan, a lot of insecurity and self-identity issues. And then it also goes to her best friend, which is Lamar, and it talks about, for him, the different things that I feel like men go through when it comes to like their mental health and taking back their sexuality, XYZ. So kind of it talks about two different stories. And it was my first film, so it was so hard. But yeah, it kind of does have a color scheme based on the mood that she's in.
All right, so set the stage for us. Give us that 10-second teaser to let us get into that film.
It just, you know, it just talks about what the film's about, why I made it. I get a little bit personal in there, but I don't want to say too much. I'm gonna just let y'all watch it.
Hello, everyone. It is Jhayla Mosley, the creator of 424 Films, and I'm here to talk a little bit about The Letter. So The Letter is about a girl, her name's Leah McGraw, and she goes through a lot of self-esteem issues within the movie. She's really pressured in a way to be somebody that she's not, just so she can get a guy that she likes, just so, you know, that people kind of get off her back. So far to the point where she even, you know, changes her entire identity. I feel like, you know, when young people, when we're going through things, I think the first thing we look to do is we look on the outside, and we don't necessarily always look inward. We're such major products of our environment.
Leah, you know I support you. It's just, I don't know, Leah. It's just, everybody in this school is so focused on being something that they not, that they lose sight of who they really are. I just always looked up to Leah for being authentic. That's all.
Growing up, I was definitely pressured to be something that just wasn't in me at the time. I was this brown-skinned girl who had very short hair. I would try to do things to myself that would make me feel either like more conventionally attractive to other people, to society, and I ended up changing a lot, and I noticed that it wasn't who I was. It just wasn't who I was meant to be. I would just wish that I had stayed more authentic, and now to this day I'm trying to, you know, reverse the damage that had happened to me, you know, when I was a kid. The film also talks about how I feel as if, you know, society also puts a lot of pressure on men and their sexuality. It's almost like it's everyone's business, but theirs.
Because, truth be told, son, I've been a little concerned about you lately.
Concerned?
Mm-hmm. Boy, I don't ever hear you talk about girls. If ever. All you do is just bring around them boys from the math club, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been a little concerned about you.
Wow. I didn't know you felt that way.
You know, to kind of wrap things up, when people watch this film, I just want them to understand that, like, it's all right to just be yourself. Like, it's cool to just do you and just flow. You know, society doesn't even know what society is. There are so many different avenues to achieve advice, and I think we live in a world where everything is so step by step by step by step, when in reality that's not really how things are. So, you know, just let people breathe, mind your business, and drink your water. That's it. Thank you for watching, y'all.
I love you too.
Wow, Jhayla, we got a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, first of all, tell me a little bit about your filmmaking style, because I notice it's very stark, and it's presented in such a way where the voice and the subject is the clear focus, the clear spotlight, the clear profile of the film, which really makes it stand out. When that narrative and the voices of your characters are emoting in the film, you really feel that. I assume that's deliberate.
Yes, thank you so much. I shoot very intimate. Even when you watch the movie, a lot of the shots are very close. And I always tell my actors, like, the camera's gonna be in your face. I want to see everything. Like, and I want to see the more flaws, the better. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm actually starting to, I think as I mature, I start to like realism a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? And I think what my style is now is a little bit much more mature than what that film was because of the whole realism aspect. But I would say I love colors. Like every color in the movie is very deliberate, from lampshades to the blues to what she's wearing to, I shot a lot outdoors. I feel like Michigan filmmakers, we don't utilize the fall enough. Like, we change seasons. Like, you go outside, it's beautiful. It's like orange and yellow and greens. And I love to shoot that. Like, every film I shoot, if it can be in the fall and we can do a lot of like drone shots of just outside, that's just kind of my thing because it kind of goes with the colors again. But I would say I'm a big push on color, and I'm an intimate shooter. I do kind of want to get into docu style a little bit. Like, I love cinema verite style of filmmaking. That's starting to be something that I want to go more into. So that's me, just realism.
You mentioned something a couple minutes ago about you like to shoot flaws, and I think that's a strength of your filmmaking, the fact that you're able to just pull out and spotlight vulnerabilities. Explain how key and essential it is to have vulnerabilities sort of move and push forward the narrative of your storylines.
I think that's very important because that's who we are as humans. Like, nothing in life is perfect. There's this series that's out called Salon, and the lead girl of that series is real. Like, I'm kind of tired of watching stuff that feels so polished, so glamorized, everything's so perfect. Like, there's not a hair out of place ever. Like, every picture is super symmetrical in every single shot. I just don't feel like that's real. And, being vulnerable makes someone relate to you more. Like, you walk in the room and it's messy, there might be a few water bottles on there or something, or the car's always, there's nothing ever in the car ever. Like, so I think vulnerabilities really allow you to pull in your audience and be like, hey, like, I'm a real person too, and I'm here to tell your story because I know, like, you're not perfect either. So
in your presentation, there was something that I thought was just great that you were touching on. The item of toxic masculinity. Talk a little bit about that, because that's something that has been talked about, especially in the African-American community. But just talk about the toxic masculinity that you were touching on in your presentation, and what you look to, or how you look to sort of articulate that.
So I feel like I can only say so much because I'm a woman. But from the outside looking in, I feel as if men don't really get a chance to be open, and we don't really allow them like vulnerable spaces because we're so hard on them and they get made fun of for the smallest things. Like, almost everything is, excuse my language, gay. You know what I'm saying? Like, people like, that's gay, or constantly using the word gay as an insult against men all of the time. When in reality, it's just like, I personally feel like sexuality is fluid, and everyone should have the opportunity to express themselves. no matter if it's on social media, no matter where it, to their family or whoever. So I just feel like we need to just allow men, and especially Black men, to have spaces to just talk, be like, this is who I am. This is who you guys want me to be, but this is really who I am. And, just allow them to be them and just take it. Like, we got to change some things in that area of masculinity, I feel like.
Yeah, you are starting and opening the box for much needed discourse on that, especially. So I love to see that. Now let's bring things into the context of Kresge. You're a Gilda awardee. What's that been like? What's been the impact of getting that recognition, and how has that just sort of confirmed, validated, and given you even more resolve to delve deep into your art and develop it even more so?
It felt really good to be appreciated, because as a Black filmmaker in Detroit, there is kind of a community of people that I don't necessarily always fit in. Like, I don't shoot the hood films. So just being raw, like, I don't really shoot the hood films. So sometimes, or it has always been hard to feel accepted in an urban space without shooting films that I feel like are super hood, which we do need those films. I just don't shoot them, or like tell certain stories. So kind of not being fully a part of that community made me feel like an outsider, like, okay, maybe it's not for me. And then I had Kresge accept me. I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't care. Like, Kresge got my back. Y'all can do whatever y'all want to. So that's how I felt. It just felt really good to be appreciated. And then, woo, I got that money when I was broke. I had like $2 in my bank account. And then I got that $5K. I'm like, okay, cool, I can pay my bills. And so that was really cool. I went to Miami for a little bit, and then I put some money into my film. Like, Kresge helped me out because I needed a vacation. I was stressed. So it was just really good to feel appreciated. And then I got awarded with some people that I look up to, like Jeremy. I was an actress at the time. I wasn't even a filmmaker when I was working with him. So he was one of the reasons why I became a filmmaker, because I saw what he was shooting. I'm like, oh, dang, like, I'm working with this guy. He's super cool. And so, now he's my peer. So it's just very humbling. And it also pushed me to apply to other things. I didn't think I was going to get accepted. I applied, and I was like, okay, I'm just delete all the emails, the confirmation emails. I'm just completely, I even like muted them on Instagram because I'm like, I don't want to, can't handle the rejection right now. So when they accepted me, I was like, oh, I didn't think it was real. So I'm just very happy.
So my next question, it's a compound question. What are your goals for the remainder of the fellowship year? So that's the short term. And then what are some of your long-term goals in filmmaking?
For the rest of the fellowship year, I need to connect with more of the mentors, because I feel like I haven't used them enough. So I'm going to email some of the mentors that they connected me with in the program. And then in the future, I'm actually working on my second feature right now. It's called The Deep Fake. And so I'm going to shoot that in the fall. And just continue to shoot films, continue to work, continue to collaborate, wherever life takes me. Like, I go, like, and I'll work any position in film. Like, I just started ACing, and then I was a production designer on another film. So just continue to work in the space. I feel like I don't necessarily have like, oh, I want to da da da. I just know I want to work around it so much that wherever I'm supposed to be, that's where I'll land.
You bring up an interesting point. I was actually going to ask that question a little bit later on in our interview, but talk about how important it is to work on other projects and just get a broad range of the filmmaking experience in your repertoire. You talk about ACing, you talk about doing other aspects of film on other projects. How do you bring that into your projects, and how important is that in making you a well-rounded filmmaker?
Well, I think that everyone should work every position at least once, especially if you're the one paying for it. And because you just gain a new respect and it helps you better when it comes to being a writer. Like you're a better writer if you're a good editor. You're a better director if you're a good editor. You're a better actor if you know how to direct. You can be a better set designer if you know how to act. You know what I'm saying? Because you know about choreography and everything. So I feel like there's not a position on set that does not help the other position in some type of way. Like people don't even know how close like the sound and wardrobe department is. If your live is right here and you're wearing a whole bunch of necklaces that go ching, 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 you know, working with sound may have helped you with that issue. So I feel like I have to work every position, and it's been really hard because I don't like working crew in terms of camera, but that made me respect them so much more. Like so much more. Like being an AC pulling focus is not for the weak. Those cameras are extremely heavy, and you know, and that even helps me with being in AD, because I'm like, this is really how much it takes to set up these lights. This is really how much they need. Oh no, we better feed these people the best crafty on earth because they're here for hours and hours and hours. So that makes me a better producer. So I just think that if you're a filmmaker and people are working under you, you should put yourself in those shoes, because man, you'll want to pay them more, feed them more when you really see, even being a PA. Like PAs do not get the respect that they deserve. A lot of people don't even pay them gas money, but are asking them to go 45 minutes over here, do this, do this, do that, do that, do that, do that. So yeah, it just helps me to be more empathetic. And when they ask for more, I'm just like, here, because usually they never have enough. So
nice. Now we have a question in chat, and it's this. There's someone that's ADing their first narrative feature film, and it's in pre-production right now. And their question to you is, from your experience of your first feature, what advice would you have for people working on their first feature-length film? And what have you learned that has informed the work on your second feature-length film?
So, especially from ADing, because ADing is extremely hard, I will be honest. But what makes it easy is if you over-communicate, you have to over-communicate, especially as the AD, because you are the person like running the ship, you know? So you need to ask questions, and no question is a dumb question. Like, you know, rentals, you need to be super close with the line producer, you need to be super close with the director, emails. Oh, as an AD, I didn't know that Google, you can schedule your emails. So, right, so if you have a 5-day feature, just pre-type up all the call sheets for the 5 days, Google schedule every single one at whatever time, 8 a.m., you know, Google schedule for Tuesday, Google schedule. So every single night, you're not, let me hurry up and send this, and let me hurry up and send this again, and let me hurry it up. Just pre-schedule all of the call sheets ahead of time. Just check them real quick before you send them out, because sometimes, you know, that happens. Make sure that your paperwork, like, is together if you're an AD, like, or have someone else who's accountable for your paperwork. Paperwork's super huge. And have a lot of respect, because ADs are the ones that are like, all right, guys, 5 minutes. They're usually always the one who are like being the pushers. So just still have respect and really work on your temper, because, you know, go on set like, oh, hello, how many minutes is this? You know, still be a pusher, but like be a people person. Don't turn into a crazy AD. And I think that's pretty much it. The biggest thing is just over communicate and just do the best that you can, and know that there's something's gonna happen every day because it's set. But never put too much pressure on yourself. Give yourself grace and ask for help. Like, ask for help. Like, I know it's a long answer, but as an AD, I feel like sometimes we'd be like, well, I'm the boss, I'm the leader, so I have to know everything and I have to do everything. Sometimes I might ask for help from people who aren't even working. Like, I'll be like, oh, hey, I need this here. Can you just help me out? DoorDash is your friend. Sometimes you just got to DoorDash to Crafty because you can't leave. Like, use a lot of different resources. Ask for help or over communicate. I know that was a lot, but
Now, speaking of resources, and this will be our last question, what resources or support do you need to support your goals?
I need money. I need money for my movie. I need good good recommendations on talent. That's pretty much those are the main two things. And for people to share my work is like the biggest thing, because I feel like content is starting to be like transactional, if that makes sense. But that's it. Just support. Prayers. Pray for me. Prayers. That's more than enough too.
Well, prayers sent. Prayers sent.
Thank you.
Jhayla, thank you so much for sharing your gift with us, and just for your expressions and just your thoughtfulness too, because it's more than a notion when it comes to filmmaking.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Now we're gonna bring Razi back out, and this is kind of what we call, or what I refer to, kind of our encore group chat with you, the both of you, because you both bring various perspectives to filmmaking, and so we really want to just bring it home in terms of your vision, your goals, but also how Kresge, how important a role that they are playing in helping you to develop your craft. So we'll bring Razi back out here, and we'll have you stay here, and we'll start with you. What's one thing that you want people to take away from your work, past, present, and future?
I want people to take away, I think the main thing that I want people to take away is that, like, no matter how much you fear something, do it scared. Like, don't let anything stop you. Don't even let yourself stop you. Yes, you need money to do things, but you need people more than money, in my opinion. So that, and I also just want people to be comfortable with being themselves, just being very authentic and vulnerable and honest, without that huge social media influence that's like in the back of our head all of the time. And that kind of what was talked about earlier, like, it's never too late to start, like, no matter how old you are. So.
Okay, now I understand Razi dropped off, so we'll finish with you. And one thing I want to touch on, Razi had mentioned it in his commentary and his discussion and conversation with us earlier, but the importance of mentoring, the importance of giving back, especially to those who gave towards you. What are your goals when it comes to giving back as you continue to develop your craft and evolve as a filmmaker?
So funny story. I actually went into the world of commercial producing because most of the people who worked on the letter worked on it for almost nothing. And so I wasn't able to give them anything. So I'm like, well, what I can do is I can give them jobs. So I started working overtime, and I started producing commercials and hiring people from my film and introducing them into the commercial space, and basically giving them a lot more money because I wasn't able to pay them. I also want to give back in terms of my art. Like, there have been people who DM'd me on Instagram like, oh yeah, your movie is exactly what I was going through. Oh, your movie is exactly what my kid is going through. So I want people to watch it and be like, yeah, like, you have a reason to live today. And I want people to feel inspired. And I feel like I could give back way more, like way more. Sometimes, I think of, like, maybe when I'm a little bit older, starting like a mentorship program for like younger girls in the city, teaching them how to edit and teaching them like technical skills, like learning camera, because camera is the moneymaker, editing is the moneymaker, so is sound. And so those are the two things I'm doing. And then I really, really want to do more is like talk to younger women in this industry.
Now, there was a very interesting thought that I saw when I was reading your biography, because you've directed commercials for minority-owned businesses. while at the same time you express a desire to make filmmaking more inclusive and environment for filmmakers, but also local businesses. How important is that for you to make filmmaking something inclusive for businesses? What's your vision and your thoughts on that?
So I feel like the issue with minority-owned businesses, we don't have the capital for these large commercials that are on TV. And so, for example, I shot the commercial for Bail Bob, and now they're on the Food Network. But when we shot with them, they were still big, you know, but it was like, I loved Bail Bob because they were immigrants, and, you know, they're in Corktown, and their food is like good and nutritious. And it was just like, these are the people that I would love to work for. Like, I would have shot the commercial for free, you know, if Midtown wasn't already paying me. But that's what I want to do. Like, I shot a commercial for my cousin. She has a beauty care business, Black owned. And I feel like in order to be a sustainable business in today's era, you have to have content, but content is getting more and more expensive because it's so accessible. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to shoot more commercials, and I actually do want to grow as a commercial producer so I can focus on minority owned, Black owned, woman owned businesses, so I can bring them more money and customers, you know, especially the ones that I go to. So,
you know, many filmmakers talk about how the art and the craft, they use their voice to push the art and the craft. But how much of the craft is incorporated into pushing your voice? How has being a filmmaker and what you've done so far developed your voice, your world perspective? Talk a little bit about that.
It makes me a day-to-day researcher by trade. You know, I feel like everything that I do now has to do with filmmaking, and it's just natural. Like, when I see someone, you know, I don't see like, someone might see like a homeless person. I see a story. Someone might see like a person out on drugs on the street. I see a story. Or somebody might just be just the meanest person on earth, going crazy, cussing everybody out. I see a story. So it's like, I think it's made me way more empathetic as a person, because when you have to write people from start to finish, whether they're a good or a bad person, usually something bad has happened to them. And so you look at them like, okay, yeah, they're like this, but like, there has to be a reason. What's the reason? And so it's making me raise way more questions. I think it's making me become a mature, better person, because I feel like everything comes full circle. Everything has a starting point. And a lot of times our trauma is caused by other people, even if, you know, we are not the best of people. So it's making me see things in, it's making me like see things like retrospective. So.
All right, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Well, Jhayla, it has been an honor talking to you. I mean, I've learned so much about just the world at large, just talking to you, and just how we can really just incorporate our voice into the craft. And you're doing just a beautiful job doing that. The last word, anything else you'd like to say about your filmmaking, your craft, but also about Kresge and the work that they're doing in giving your work an even higher profile, even more visibility?
I am very blessed and grateful to be working, collaborating, chosen by Kresge. It's very, very huge that they're doing so much, not just for people who have, you know, artists who have been in this industry for years, but also the next generation of artists, which is huge. Like, sometimes it's just one or the other, and they tackle both. So I love Kresge, very thankful for them. They've given me so many resources and opportunities that I actually need to use more. So, and just being from here and just seeing like all these artists that, you know, I kind of like grew up with as well, getting their recognition is super, super dope. In terms of filmmaking, I just, you know, in front of and behind the camera, I want to promote a better work-life balance. We should be able to go on set and then go home to our families. at a decent amount of time. Our health shouldn't be compromised. Our mental health, physical health, emotional health shouldn't be compromised. And, you know, on top of that, I just want to create things that make people feel inspired and change. So
beautifully put, beautifully put. Well, Jhayla, thank you so much for joining us today for this inspiring dialogue, this inspiring conversation, and this compelling narrative. And we also want to thank Razi Jafri for doing much the same as well. Best of luck to the both of you in your endeavors.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you enjoyed your time and leave today feeling more deeply connected to these talented artists, but also just to the world of talent that's coming out of Detroit. So please continue to remain in connection with them. Their contact information is there in the chat. You're invited to stay in touch with Razi Jafri and Jhayla Mosley. Please refer to that contact information that has been dropped in the chat as we speak for more information on how to stay connected. If you'd like to rewatch or reshare this program, it'll be posted on Kresge Arts in Detroit Presents.art within the next few days. On behalf of Kresge Arts of Detroit, my name is Chris Campbell from WDET. We'll see you next time.